I did these practices. So I really self-examined my value system. I really self-examined the principles by which I wanted to live my life. I really examined the way I was spending my time and who I was spending that with and the circle of friends I had and the way I wanted to live my life on a daily basis to track up to something bigger. And I, as Kobe Bryant said, I edited my life. I tried to get rid of everything that didn't serve me, my goals or my values or principles. And it's exhausting. It's like you're flipping your life upside down and everything is with so much intention and nothing changes. It's the exact same 7 months from when you started. And you're like, well, what am I doing? Like, this makes no sense. I did that methodically for 3 years. And when it was happening, I didn't even realize the changes that were happening in my life. And then I stepped away from it for 2 or 3 more years. And it wasn't until very, very recently, like a few months ago, that I was like, you know what? Those were the most transformative years of my life.
We are here because we know the outcomes in our lives are within our control. That taking absolute ownership of how we eat, sleep, train, think, and connect with each other is how we'll optimize our health and happiness. That chasing excellence is how we grab hold of what is possible. Our mission is to live on the run, always chasing, never stopping. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Chasing Excellence. As always, I am here with Mr. Ben Bergeron. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very, very well, Mr. Patrick Cummings.
I'm happy to hear that. Today we are going to talk about something I've labeled it excellence fatigue. It's something that actually everyone, folks send us really good questions, and as best I can, I try to keep an eye out for similarities between questions, or thematic things that maybe multiple people are asking in different ways. And that's where this idea came from. And the general gist is a question like, I listen to Chasing Excellence, I listen to Jocko Willink and Tim Ferriss, and I read 7 Habits of blah, blah, blah. And I do this and I do that. And I find myself struggling because I can't live up to the ideals that these sorts of, again, books, podcasts, people, influences, I feel like I'm consistently failing at best practices, at the habits, right? Like I've read Atomic Habits, still can't and just this idea of for you, how do we start to take all these sources in, learn from them, get the most out of them, but not end up beating ourselves up for being human, for not living up to these highest ideals. And so that's kind of what I just wanted to pitch to you as somebody who I know looks at certainly the pursuit of excellence, but has read all the books, has talked to all the people, has done all the things. How do you navigate the ideal versus the reality, and assuming that there is some gap, maybe it's a small gap, but there's some gap between those two things?
Yeah. I certainly have not talked to all the people or read all the books, but I'll give my perspective from where I am in my life right now. That's the best I can do. And it's a great conversation. I love it. There's a lot of things as you're saying that, it's like, oh my gosh, in real time trying to figure out how to structure the conversation, because there's so much. I don't really know the right place to start, I guess is what I'm saying. Other than you're not supposed to be awesome at this. Like there's this big differentiation between pursuing betterment and pursuing perfection. We are not pursuing perfection. And if you hold yourself to that ideal, I will consistently come up short. And I struggled with this for a few years, which it was like, I'm trying to read this. I'm trying to have these meetings. I'm trying to have a mentorship group. I'm trying to meditate and journal in the morning. I'm trying to live a life true to my core values. I'm trying to use the principles to guide my actions, decisions, behaviors. I'm trying to check the boxes to make sure that I'm not chasing the bright, shiny objects, and I'm keeping my ladders leaned up against the right wall. And what's frustrating is whenever you do anything and don't see returns on your investment. That's incredibly demotivating. the best way to get motivated by something is quick wins, for sure. You do something, you get an immediate response. I'm moving towards something. It's what creates dopamine. Dopamine it's in place to let you know you're on the pursuit towards your goals. When you are chasing down prey, and we're cavemen, and you get a little bit closer and you realize that thing is closer to you, you get, oh, I'm making progress. I'm getting closer. Like this is worth the effort. It's really difficult when that's not happening. It's even more difficult when you feel like the thing is getting farther away. Like, why would you keep chasing it? There's no reason from an evolutionary paleobiological perspective for us to do that. But there's this level of understanding that we probably all could bring into our lives, which is good things do take time. And we're not going to see immediate results on a lot of the things at which we're pursuing. And whether you mentioned James Clear's Atomic Habits, or you use the common analogy, which is the bamboo forest, like these things take time. James Clear, what he says is, if you're trying to melt an ice cube and you're in a room that is 5 degrees Fahrenheit, you doing all the effort to warm up that room, and it's a lot of work to warm up that room, build a fire, whatever it might be, to get that room from 5 degrees up to 15 degrees. And you look at the ice cube and nothing's happened. Nothing has happened. So you keep working, and you get that room up to 28. Nothing happens. 29, nothing happens. 30 degrees, nothing happens. 31 degrees, the ice cube is just sitting there the exact same way it always was. You have put in so much work to get that room from 5 to 31 degrees, but there's nothing to show for it. It doesn't mean nothing's happening. You have heated up that room massively. And then when you get that one next degree, all of a sudden, magically, it seems, the ice cube starts melting. This is us in this pursuit of excellence. It may take, and for me, a little personal perspective on it, I did these practices. So I really self-examined my value system. I really self-examined the principles by which I wanted to live my life. I really examined the way I was spending my time and who I was spending that with, and the circle of friends I had, and the way I wanted to live my life on a daily basis to track up to something bigger. And I, as Kobe Bryant said, I edited my life. I tried to get rid of everything that didn't serve me, my goals or my values or principles. And it's exhausting. It's like you're flipping your life upside down, and everything is with so much intention and nothing changes. It's the exact same 7 months from when you started. And you're like, well, what am I doing? Like, this makes no sense. And we were having this conversation before we started rolling, which is, I did that methodically for 3 years. And when it was happening, I didn't even realize the changes that were happening in my life. But this was from, when was that, Patrick, that I did? Because you were with me when I was doing it.
Yeah, it would 15, 16, 17, if I had to kind of lump it. Yep.
15, 16, 17. And then I stepped away from it for 2 or 3 more years. And it wasn't until very, very recently, like a few months ago, that I was like, you know what? Those were the most transformative years of my life. Those are the years I grew more than any other part of my life. It was when I was being so intentional, and I was bringing so much perspective, and I was so action oriented in what I was doing on a daily basis. So much so that when I had that realization, that epiphany, I reverted back to all of those practices. I am now, again, I call it tracking. I am tracking my life on a daily basis now, once again. It is something that, the bamboo forest, same analogy, which is there's different types of bamboo. But there's a certain type of bamboo that you plant it, you tend to it, you water it, you fertilize it, you give it care and attention on a daily basis, and nothing happens much more than a little sprouting for 3 years. And you're like, this is so fresh. I'm putting so much work in for this much growth. Why in the world am I spending this time? But if you're committed to that process of tending to your bamboo forest on a daily basis, consistently over time, what ends up happening is it becomes one of the fastest growing things in the plant or animal kingdom. It actually can grow an inch and a quarter an hour. You can watch it grow. It can grow 40 feet in a week. It's like this massive growth. But again, it took 3 years of cultivating this thing without seeing a return on investment. Hard to do, hard to do without getting frustrated. It basically, to me, a big part of this has to be beyond what am I going to get out of it? It basically has to be like, am I the type of person that wants to live a life this way? Knowing I'm going to fall short of all the perfect ideals. I'm not going to be Jocko Willink. I'm not going to be Mahatma Gandhi. I am not going to be Nelson Mandela. I am not going to be Abraham Lincoln. I'm not going to be Winston Churchill. I am not going to be any of those people. I am going to be my own version, but I'm going to live life intentionally on my own level. And yes, I'll read Ryan Holiday stuff and the Daily Stoic. And yes, I will absorb and I'll try to join like a YPO organization. And yes, I will try to surround myself with people which pull me up, not pull me back down. And I will recognize that I am so when I started this process, I was very aware of that. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yep.
And that circle's changed a lot over that time. And I believe that to be true. Like, what are the books you're reading? What are the movies you're watching? What are the conversations you're having? Who are the people you surround yourself with? Your environment is at least the second. It might be the most powerful determinant of what you become.
Yeah.
The only other one that would be better that I could maybe say is higher is your own personal mindset. I think mindset can overcome environment, but it's really hard. I mean, even your DNA, which is like supposed to be the blueprint of biology. It's supposed to be like you are a human because of your DNA, is expressed because of the environment it is. It's not this strand of DNA doesn't mean it's going to become cancerous or it's going to become bone or it's going to become fat or it's going to become a lipid. It becomes that because of the environment it's exposed to.
Yeah.
So your environment is so powerful. So what we want to be able to do is take that intention and give yourself the room to not be perfect. Because if you don't, you're not really doing what we're talking about. What you're saying, it is that the baseline level is, what I said is like, set up your environment. So it's easier to do this, right? So if you are around a bunch of negative people, if your job is pulling you out of this life that you want to live, if your family, even if your family, the people that you're supposed to be the close to in the world, are not supporting you in a productive way, you got to cut ties. You got to cut ties. Like, this is the only chance you get. And what we want to do is set up your environment as much as you can. And the next one is equally important, is your mindset.
Yep.
And it's as simple as fixed or growth. Fixed is the pass fail. Fixed is I'm not meeting the standard. I'm not good enough. I'm failing at this. And that weighs on you so much. And that's why it's so detrimental. The lowest level of fixed mindset is the victim mindset, which I have no control whatsoever. This is not my fault. I'm the victim here. That's the worst thing. But even the higher level, which is like, this is just really hard, but I'm failing, is the fixed mindset. It's the pass fail. And we got to try to go away or pull away. This is the exhausting part.
Yep.
We have to try to pull away from that pass fail mentality into growth, learning, adaptation, iterations, build, measure, learn, build, measure, learn, make mistakes, come up short, meditate on it, create the space, solitude, introspection, look at yourself. What role do I have to play in this? What can I change to make this better? I can't change it right now, so I'm just going to do the baby steps of what I know. And then from there, it doesn't have to also be a 24/7. You need the R&R. You need to, everyone has this in their own ways. You need to, whatever it is, watch Seinfeld, read a trashy magazine, sleep in on a Saturday, like whatever it is that isn't totally in line with your vision of what excellence is, realize that what we need to do is only be that 85, 90%. We don't need to be 100. If you're 100, we're probably not going to hang out because it's like you're the infallible one and there's no such thing.
Yeah. Where, you said something at the start, the need for, or certainly it's helpful to have quick wins or some kind of feedback to know that you are moving in the right direction. And I think because I know you and because I was kind of around then, I think that when you're talking about tracking or paying attention to the things you want to pay attention to, one of the reasons that it worked was because you gave yourself some kind, or it gave you some kind of feedback, some kind of quick win. You could look at the end of the day and say, cool, I took a step in the right direction. And so I'm curious, do we need to have a thing that we check and we say, okay, we did the thing today in order to get the kind of feedback, in order to plant the garden that we need to plant so that at some future date it sprouts the growth that we hope it does? Or like, what is that what we're missing, or is there something else in there that might be worth thinking about?
For some context to what you're talking about, because people might be like, what the hell is he talking about, checking boxes and tracking? What I've done for a long time is I've divided my life up into 4 or 5 different core values. And I had some things I was tracking, which I call my principles, on a daily basis, and making sure that I was just doing those things. There's a double-edged sword to that. So the one thing is like you get the dopamine of like, I'm moving towards my goals, by checking those boxes. That only works if you create the connection to these values are going to lead me to the life. If they're meaningless boxes, then you fall into the trap, which is the worst thing you can do, because if they're meaningful, you get that dopamine response because like, I'm doing the good thing. I'm doing the good thing. This feels good. Yes. Checking the boxes. I called my mom. I had a family dinner. I meditated today. I did yoga. I went for a walk. I did my sauna. I wrote a thank you note when I didn't need to write a thank you note, a thinking of you note, like all those things.
Yep.
But here's the trap is if you don't truly believe that those things are in line with the vision of the life that you want to create, what you're doing is you're creating busy work. And that's where now it becomes like tedious. And even if you're checking the boxes, there's no dopamine because what the hell? Like, I checked another box and I'm not getting anywhere. Checked another box and I'm not getting anywhere. Checked another box, I'm not getting anywhere. So there's a double-edged sword there where you have to spend the time. It's why you can't just jump into it. Because if you still have the fixed mindset, you're going to get crushed because there's too many things that you're going to mess up along the way. And if you don't take the time to figure out what is truly in line with the vision I have for myself, you're just going to start doing stuff. Now, that can work because it can you start the iteration process. And action's the cure to anxiety. If you're just sitting there like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what my values are. I don't know what principles I should be tracking. I don't know what, then just start moving and start creating and iterate along the way. And don't be stuck to these things. There's a study that, this is kind of counterintuitive. The business organizations that change their core values the most frequently actually have the greatest amount of employee engagement and buy-in. Isn't that kind of counterintuitive? Absolutely. Like they're changing them. Like where's the consistency? What that means to me is if they're changing them, they've operationalized them. It means something. They're actually running their business based off of these core values. And they're going, wait, this one doesn't make sense anymore. I think we make this a little bit better. We may tweak this way a little bit. And it's a living, breathing thing. Much like your purpose of your life. The purpose of your life is not set in stone when you're born. You don't need to find your purpose. Mm-hmm. The purpose is something that you're defining along the way, and it changes and it moves. Forget about trying to find your purpose. Live a life that's going to deliver fulfillment to you, that you're going to be proud of at the end. That's what the thing is all about.
Yep.
If you can put some defining characteristics to that, all right, then we're starting to move along the ladder a little bit. But it is hard, to go back to your question, to say like, I need to track to get those small little wins, but that can also bite you back, because it happened to me. One of the things I tracked was that what I just mentioned was, once a week, I wanted to write a thinking of you notes, like not an email, not a text. I wrote a handwritten, slow one. And I did that for 3 or 4 months, and it's kind of tiring and exhausting. You have to think about who you want to do. You have to lick the envelope, put a stamp on it, write it. And I didn't see any returns on that. Right? No one was like, thanks for the note. Like, that's so powerful. No one was like, hey, great note. Here's a business opportunity we should talk about. It was like, great note. Like, here's here's your 6-pack abs. Like, it doesn't work that way. So I stopped. And what I realized was, when I stopped, it felt like I didn't have that fulfillment that I had when I was doing it. So what the real wins are when the process becomes the win in and of itself. Mm-hmm. You're not waiting for the destination. You enjoy the process so much that it becomes the fulfilling part of it unto itself. You don't need the end goal. This is like anyone that I'd recommend, what should you do for your career? Well, what would you do if you didn't have to work? What would you be doing? Go do that. Because whether you become super successful, quote unquote, society's definitions of success, or not, you're going to be successful because you're going to be so fulfilled by doing this thing because it's something you love anyway.
Yeah.
As long as you don't fall into the trap of the entrepreneur, which an entrepreneur regret, and you end up not doing the thing. This is another conversation.
Yeah. You've mentioned a few times the word iterate. And I think in the context of that idea of, build, learn, iterate. How do you recommend people, how do you yourself figure out what that iteration process looks like? Because I think the challenge is sometimes we set the goal, and, back to what you said about pass fail versus growth. We set the goal and we didn't get it, so we failed. Versus we set a goal, we didn't get there yet. We did something new, we tried again, we didn't get there yet, right? So I think that can sometimes be a challenge when we think, okay, we got to set a goal, but then we put something into place and we don't quite get there, and then that feels like a failure, and then that feels, I can't believe I have to do this again. I can't believe I have to try again. I can't believe that didn't work. How do you marry those things? How do you get that build, learn, iterate mentality, but do it in such a way that it doesn't feel like try, fail endlessly until hopefully someday the bamboo garden starts to grow?
Goals definitely have their place and they have their purpose. And we've talked about goals on this podcast.
Yep.
The reason goals are powerful is because they create clarity of vision for an end destination for what you are trying to accomplish. And then you get the little feel goods as you take steps towards that goal. That's the purpose of a goal. Goals are dangerous, though, because they can equally be as detrimental. If you are not getting those little baby steps forward, they might not work out as well. And I'll give a real world example of this. Last summer, I had the conversation with Cole Sager, with the athletes I trained for the CrossFit Games. I said, what is the one metric that if you got this, you would be like, I am a machine. I am ready to crush the games. And he said a sub 19-minute 5K. It made sense because he had run a couple 5Ks in training around 1925, 1930. Once he set that goal from himself, we went after it. He never ran below a 1950 again that summer. Mm. Because goals can be too daunting. They can weigh on you too much. If we had never talked about that, the way he was on a trajectory for, he was going to get the sub 19 5K. Because he would have been able to operate in a flow state every single time he went on and not measure, am I going to hit my goal? pulling himself out of the present moment towards a future date. That's the danger with goals, is you're always future oriented. Your mind has an incredibly difficult time being in the present moment. It's always trying to learn the lessons from the past and predict the future. That's what your mind is in place for. It's here for safety. Your mind is just here for learn from the past, predict the future, be safe. That's what it's always assessing that. Your body is always in the present. You can only feel, taste, touch, hear what's happening right now. If you can get your mind into the present, you can get into a flow state. And that's where great performance happens.
Yep.
To me, goals can be counterintuitive for that reason. And you have to set your goals very, very strategically. And the best goals, once you get to a certain level, I get it. If you're 200 pounds, let me say, if you're 250 pounds and you're a 5'1" female, like losing 30 pounds might make sense. Like that's a cool thing to have on your kind of radar. At some point though, I would love for that person to get more enamored with the process. Less about the goals, more about the process. The goals, ultimately, you really don't have much control over them. They're future oriented, while the process you do have control over and it's present focused. That's a lot more empowering to me, is to have control over something and not fearing something I have no control over.
Yep.
So one of the ways to mitigate this pass fail, this whole goal oriented situation, is just get more process oriented. And that's what we do with this tracking. Is I'm not saying like I need to be successful at age in 5 years. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is in 5 years, when I look back, what am I going to be really proud of that I did? And I'm putting now my focus on the present, future oriented, but I'm looking back and saying, what should I be doing right now? If my future 5 years from now self, I don't think it would say, set these goals. I don't think that's what I would say to myself. If I was to go back to myself 5 years ago, I wouldn't go set these goals. What I would say is, hey, do this on a daily and weekly basis and watch how this spins up into something pretty cool.
Yep. What did you, if you can, go thinking about that, that 5 year ago, Ben, or 10 years ago or whatever, what did that individual not understand maybe about the value of process versus the pursuit of goals that you understand better now? Because I think that there's some shift happened for you. I think it happens for a lot of people to move from that specific pass fail to this bigger idea that we're talking about. Like, what don't we understand when we're in that pass fail phase, that once you get beyond it, maybe it's age, maybe it's experience, maybe it's wisdom, whatever, you look back and you think, yeah, that's obvious why that I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. I didn't go anywhere.
Okay. I don't know if I'm going to answer your question, but to me, the idea is because the words that really pulled out of there for me is like fulfillment and happiness and all the rest, is when we create these goals, we have to realize that there's give and takes everywhere.
Yep.
So if I set the goal to run a sub 5 minute mile, man, that's going to take a lot of focus, effort, energy, time. That has to pull from somewhere else. So it's this seesaw, teeter-totter effect. To me, one of the really powerful ways that we should be doing this that creates your words, happiness, and fulfillment is set them across the totality of your life. So know that when you're creating the work goal and the work metrics and the work principles and the work daily, weekly to-dos, we also want to do that with the personal life. Because when you do that, that's when these things blend together. And if we're chasing so if you're like, no, dude, I'm willing to sacrifice everything to make $10 million. Okay. Then set all your goals towards that. I'm not, because I don't think my 5 years from now self is going to be very happy that I did that. I think the 5 year from me self is going to go, hey, it's really important. And this is for me. I'll share what they are very specifically. Live, love, learn, and love. Live, love, live, learn. These 4 L's. So live. That's about like my things there are right now, and they change. Right now, it's like do Wim Hof breathing. It's meditate. It's eat real food. It's those type of things. I have 5 things for each of these. So I have 20 things that I'm tracking. For love, it's my family. It's about my family first type thing. So it's be home by 6 o'clock every single night and don't do any work. No computer, no phone, no text messages, no Instagram when you get home. It's family dinner. It's call mom and dad. It's contact my wife in the middle of the day to check in. It's those type of things. So I have these categories I'm checking along the way. And I have those things across all these different aspects. And to me, when you blend them all together, that's when we kind of, it might move slower because we're trying to roll the big stone up the mountain and not just this little one getting to the top and be like, I made it. But you only got the little stone with you. I want to get to the top of the mountain with the big ass stone my whole life.
Yep.
Not saying that this is the right way. It's again, the kind of way we lead off this podcast. It's where I am in my life right now. And this is what I'm chasing.
It strikes me, and I don't know if I've thought about it in this context before, but it strikes me that a lot of what we're talking about is the difference between seeing something as an expense or seeing something as an investment. And I think that, I don't want to stretch the metaphor too thin, but I think that we think a lot about life as decisions as expenses. What do I have to give up in order to get the thing I want, right? A new iPhone, a pair of sneakers. Whereas if we if we can figure out how to start thinking about our decisions more as investments, that might be closer to this process oriented thinking, which is what I'm hearing from you. And obviously I know of you. I think that's the shift that ultimately needs to happen. Use whatever vernacular you want to, but that's the one that strikes me as useful.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, like the expense versus investment. So I think that at some point when I started doing this, it was expensive. Like I spent a lot of time doing this. And what I'm saying is, I would love to think that it was an investment, but it was expensive.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time thinking about it. I spent a lot of time creating a spreadsheet to track it. I would make sure that the borders looked good and the colors were good. And
I know. I think I helped you with that.
all of that stuff, right? And what I've realized is that's a waste of time.
Yeah.
So I've tried to get to be less expensive and more bang for my buck. Yep. And I use James Clear's Atomic Habits Journal now.
Right. Cool.
Which has this built into it.
Yep.
So I don't need to, it's pen and paper. I don't even need to open my computer. I don't need to log in. I don't need to pull away from work. It's just like, for some reason, the pen and paper, it's just so much faster for me to do this. So I think those things play off each other. Just because it's an investment, it could be an expensive investment. Like you buying a Rolls Royce might be an investment for you. That's a terrible analogy, but buying a piece of property, right? Buying a $10 million piece of property might be a great investment for you with a hotel on it, right? Great, like big, that's expensive though.
Yeah.
What is the least expensive investment you can make? And I think that playing those two words off of each other would be a really cognizant way of entering into this practice.
Starting to maybe wrap this conversation up about, at least what we started with as excellence fatigue, which I do think we're circling around. I'm curious, when you stopped the tracking after the couple years, did you do it because it got too expensive, quote unquote expensive? Or did you just feel like, okay, I got as much as I was going to get out of this, and like it's in me now and it's who I am, and I don't have to do the checking of the boxes anymore because I've got it. And why the recent shift back to, nope, I've got to actually check the boxes?
Yeah, I got bored with it. It
Mm-hmm.
became too expensive. I didn't think I was getting the bang for the buck. I think I was where a lot of the people that are asking this question, which is like, God, I'm putting all this work in, and where's it? Where's the payoff? I've done this for 3 years. I've done this for 3 years, and I have yet to see the fruits of this thing. So I stopped.
Yep.
And it was like the wave had yet to reach the beach, you know?
Yep.
And it wasn't until I look back on it now that I go like, oh my God, that set me up for the next, all of the things I'm doing now that I have available. And I'm so, I can honestly say like I'm really fulfilled with the life that I'm living right now. It has a lot to do with those 3 years of intentionality behind it.
Yep.
So it was that exact feeling, this excellence fatigue. Like I'm doing those things, and it's not paying off.
Yep.
And the other part was like, I got this. Like I know I'm supposed to call my mom. I know I'm supposed to call my dad. I know I'm supposed to be home at 6. I know I'm supposed to eat clean. Like I know I'm supposed to get 8 hours of sleep a night. Like these things are like, I know all these things. Why am I tracking these? And it's funny. What doesn't get measured
doesn't improve.
starts to slip a little bit. It's just crazy. Like it's what people like when people go off macros, right? Like I got this. I know, and I'm not going to weigh and measure this stuff. It takes so much time and so much effort. Like I know how much 6 ounces of chicken is. I know what 2 ounces of broccoli looks like. I know what how much 40 grams of protein looks like in my meal. So like I got this, and you stop weighing, measuring, you stop tracking, and what happens a year later?
Yeah.
Like we're not totally on the rails. I don't know how far we've fallen off, but we're not on the rails.
Mm-hmm.
And my 5 year from self from now, I know is gonna be more proud if I'm on the rails. Not perfect. Like the rails are going from Boston to San Francisco. And I'm gonna make purposeful deviations because I don't want to be perfect. I'm gonna make purposeful deviations. I'm gonna stop off in Chicago and have a couple pieces of pizza, and then I'm gonna I'm gonna go and visit the game site in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm gonna get back on the rails, keep going, and then I'll stop off and check out the Badlands in South Dakota, and we'll hop back on the rails, knowing that it's not gonna be perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect, but these are the guideposts. These are the things that I'm saying as best to my knowledge right now that are gonna lead to a fulfilled life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing to me more important or valuable than doing that.
Last question. The going off the rails, or however you want to categorize it, to me, it sounds a little bit, and I've experienced it myself. It's kind of like the process is going back to comfort to a large degree, going back to I don't need to measure this. It's close enough, right? Or I don't need to call my mom this week. It's fine. Like, but going back to easy, comfortable, lazy to some degree. And is that often the thing we need to be keeping our eye out for? Is where am I choosing the overly comfortable option here, where I had set myself up to maybe choose the slightly uncomfortable or slightly more expensive decision. And maybe that's where we end up. I got this. I'm fine. I don't need to measure this. I don't need to worry about this anymore. I got this.
So we as human beings are calorie preserving machines. Said another way, we're going to default lazy.
Yep.
That's what we are. We're going to default to sit on the couch, Netflix, and chill. Yep. That's the way we're set up. We're going to, if we're not conscious about it, we're going to choose the ice cream over the broccoli. Like it tastes better. Like, yeah, it's like peanut butter flavored Oreo ice cream is dope. Like, yes. What it means is that you have to have, to me, it's 3 things: awareness, intentionality, and perspective. And when you bring those things in, awareness, like in the present moment, what am I doing right now? Awareness. What is it that I want my life to stand for? Awareness. What are the things that are meaningful to me? Perspective. Yeah, I know I want the Oreo ice cream right now, but perspective. Tomorrow morning, how am I going to feel about that?
Yep.
And intentionality. You have to meaningfully do it. You have to have, it's not about, you have to bring so much intention. It's not just going to happen on its own. We are, if you don't, you're going to be the leaf blowing in the wind, and you're just going to let life take over, and you're going to have no control over the outcome of your life. You need to do life intentionally.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's a good place to wrap up. Thank you, my friend. Thank you to everybody out there who sends us good questions, who leaves ratings and reviews. If you know anybody who might like this show, do share it with them. And we will be back next week for another episode of Chasing Excellence. You can get every episode of Chasing Excellence wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Until next time, thank you for listening.